everybody, to UFO ET Experiencers. And I am so excited tonight because we have a very special guest. His name is Kevin Briggs. He is an author, and he's also a channeler, and he specializes in consciousness and the connection to ETs and UFOs. He recently published a book titled Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey, and it covers 57 years of his experiences of ET contact and UFO connections. So Kevin is going to share his story with us and anything else he would like us to know. And then at the end, when Kevin's done, we're going to open up the floor for questions and answers. So welcome, Kevin. So happy to have you here.
I'm pleased to be here. Thank you, Catherine, for inviting me. Without people like yourself, I cannot get my story out there. And I think it's an important story to tell. One of many people speaking out now about their own contact and everything. So just one of many, really. But I'll start from the beginning. I say I've had a lifelong contact. But if I start from the very early age, I was 3 years old. And my mother had engaged a photographer to take some photographs for the family album. He obviously arrived, and when he was taking the photographs, he lifted me up onto the oak dining room table for a better elevation for the photographs. And from that position, I looked around the room, and I realized that I was in a physical body again. I was like two people, my consciousness looking out from the physical. And that was my first recollection of this incarnation, shall we say. And the fact that consciousness is part of our physical reality. And that was at the age of 3. My next encounter, I was 8 years old. As a child, I was always sensitive to the other frequencies that surround us. If, say, a deceased person entered the room, I would feel those frequencies. So I was aware that there was more to our reality than what we were actually seeing or hearing. And on this occasion, I was 8 years old, and I was taking a bath at home. And then I felt that change within the frequency within the bathroom. I looked to my right, and two beings materialized. One male, one female. They were both very attractive. Both had long, blonde, shoulder-length hair. They had deep blue eyes. They were wearing a blue jumpsuit type garment, very tight-fitting. And they were speaking to one another telepathically. It frightened me to death at the time, as you can imagine, as a young 8-year-old boy. But I could understand what they were saying within their telepathic communication. And they weren't speaking to me, they were speaking about me. Their names are D. I'm still in contact with them to this day. I am now 69. And they still guide me, they still teach me. The conversation went something as follows. The names are Ort and D. Ort is the male, D is the female. They tell me they are fifth dimensional beings. They are children, and they are originally from Andromeda. And they also tell me that the only difference between the different dimensions, as we're in the third dimension here, and they're in the fifth, is the frequency, the vibrational frequencies of consciousness itself within that reality. And that's what separates them, just those frequencies. So the conversation went as follows. D said to Ort, "Is this the boy?" Ort said, "Yes, this is the boy." And then she questioned him again and said, "Are you sure this is the boy? Look, he's small, he's uneducated, and he's frightened by our presence." And as I said, she was correct. I was terrified. Ort said, "Yes, this is the boy. I will guide him. I will teach him." There was some other conversation there. And then they left. I dare not get out of the bath. The water went cold. I was shivering. My mother came in to see why I was still in the bath. And I told her about the two beings. And she said it was just my imagination. It wasn't. As I say, I'm still in contact with them to this day. The next encounter was a year later. I was 9 years old, and I'd had some friends round. It was a Sunday. We'd been playing different board games, and it was time for them to leave to go home. And I showed them out the back door, and then when I turned around into the home, I could feel this frequency again in the home. So I went looking for it. I went into the living room, I went into the kitchen, the 3 bedrooms, and then I went back down into the living room where it was strongest. And I was drawn towards the window, the curtains, the drapes, and I looked behind the curtains, and there was an orb there. It was about 4 to 6 inches across. It was slightly vibrating, orangey yellow in color. I was a bit concerned because I thought I'd invited it into the home, and if my mother saw it, I would get into trouble. And I thought, well, it'll probably go when I go to bed this evening. So I went to bed. I woke up the following morning, and I knew straight away when I woke up, I could feel the frequency. I went down to the living room, looked behind the curtain, and it was still there. So I thought, well, when I go to school today, when I come back home from school about 4 o'clock, I'm sure it'll disappear. And I opened the door when I came in at 4 o'clock, and I knew straight away it was still there. I walked up to the curtains, I looked behind the curtain in the living room, and it was still there. So again, I was a little perturbed in case my mother saw it. Anyway, this went on for the whole week until Friday. I came in from school on Friday about 4 o'clock. I opened the back door and realized that the orb wasn't there. There was no frequency. I went to the curtains, I looked behind the curtains, and it had left. There was no communication that I was aware of. I do know now what happened. I didn't at the time. But immediately after that, I was able to separate my own consciousness and travel outside of the physical body, the physical realm, as it were. And I didn't use this to travel very far as a young boy. I would usually just travel to see my grandparents on a Sunday. I would just relax, open my mind, as I say, leave the physical realm and travel as a pure conscious energy orb. I would enter my grandparents' home. They lived in Liverpool at the time, and I lived in Wakefield in the UK, about 70 miles away. And I would enter through the roof just as a pure conscious energy orb. And they had a dressing room off the master bedroom upstairs. And I would sit in a chair that I could see down through the floor. The floor was opaque, and I could see my grandmother usually in the kitchen cooking on a Sunday, and my grandfather either reading the newspaper or watching TV. And at that time, I often wondered what they would see if they came upstairs. I know the answer to that now. They would see a pure conscious energy orb, and that would be my conscious energy. And it would have been 4 to 6 inches in diameter, slightly vibrating, orangey yellow in color. I know now what happened when Orc came, when he traveled to my home and stayed there for a week. He activated my DNA. Our DNA are encoded with light frequencies, and he activated some of those frequencies that allowed me to travel out of body as a pure conscious energy orb, as they do. Now, as a young 9-year-old boy, I thought this was normal, just another one of our senses: sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell, all the usual senses that we're aware of, and out of body travel. And so I just accepted it. I didn't go very far. I didn't know the full potential of it. I do now, but I didn't as a small boy. So I just continued to, as I say, just visit my my grandparents or usually on Sunday. And as I got older, I would use it to go and visit friends first to see if they were at home before walking around to their home, because then we didn't have cell phones and the communication that we have now. So just simple things for using it. And when I started work, very often I used to go to work, travel by the local bus. And when I went up to the bus stop, sometimes the line was really, really long, but I had a choice of 2 bus stops. So when I came out to my apartment, I would quickly leave my body, nip up to the 2 bus stops, see which was the shortest line, and then choose that bus stop to walk up to. Just simple things like that, really. But that was when I got a little bit old, when I started work. My next encounter was, I was 14 years old, still living in Wakefield. At this time, I have a paper out. And when I leave the home to go and collect my papers, a UFO appears above the home. And as I'm walking down to collect the papers from the paper store, a second UFO always appears. And then they follow me around the paper round. And while I'm walking around the paper round, I realize that there's some other frequencies there. There's someone else there behind the hedge, behind the wall. So on one occasion, I plucked up courage and I said, I know you're there. Can you show yourself? And two small grey beings walked out from behind the hedge. I wasn't frightened. I asked them what they wanted. And they said there was a group of people that wished to meet with me. And I said, well, I've got my paper round to finish. And then I've got to go to school. I can't miss my school. And they said, well, you can finish your paper round and we'll have you back in time for school. So I agreed to go with them. And I finished my paper round and I left with them. I was taken up to a mothership. I believe it was a mothership because of the size of the hangar. The hangar itself was the size of a football stadium. And in that hangar were all these different shapes of crafts and things that we see, that people take photographs flying around in our atmosphere, all these different shapes and sizes. And I was led up to a door, excuse me, and as I was walking up to the door, there was a small grey. He was working on one of the crafts, and he waved at me. So I just waved back to be polite. I've got to know him since then, and his name is Tia. And if we get time later, I'll relate a story in relation to Tia, which involves my wife as well. So anyway, I was led down to this door and then down to an amphitheatre. The amphitheatre was full of all these different beings. And at the front of the amphitheatre was a table, and sat on that table were 8 beings. 2 beings being Orton D, the 2 that I met in my bathroom when I was 8. And then there was a blue bird type being. Her name was Anna. There was a small grey. His name is Zar. He's a mathematician and engineer. He designs propulsion systems. And then sat in the middle of this group was Ra. His energy, because I could still feel their energies, his energy was tremendous. He is Anunnaki. He's very old. And he is the leader of this particular group of 8 individuals. And then there was Tag. He was a tall grey, and he told me that he was responsible not only for the security of this group of 8 beings, this council of 8, as I've come to call them, but he's also responsible for the security of this quadrant of the galaxy. And next was Chica. I was a little perturbed about Chica because she was a mantis being, and just like a large grasshopper over, well, like our little mantis beings we have here. The small ones, just like that, but 6 foot tall. So I was a little perturbed by that. And then lastly was Orla. She was a tall white. She had a very gaunt, pale complexion, and her hair was shoulder length. It was translucent. And she told me she was an astrobiologist. So that was the 8 that I met. I'm still in contact with all 8 to this day. And at that time, as a 14-year-old boy, I thought that I was just there being paraded as a specimen, a human specimen. I know that's not the case now. All the people in the audience were delegates representing their sections of their society, not unlike we have at the UN or Congress or Senate, very similar to that. So it was really an introduction for me to them, really. Anyway, I was taken back home. They dropped me off near my home and I walked around the corner. And I was away about 20-25 minutes. It's when I did my paper round, I knew what time scale I had. I said, same time every day, did the same round. And I was about 20-25 minutes later. I got to school on time, no problem. So that was takes me up to 14 years of age. And then obviously I'm getting a little bit older. I'm now 17, 18. I've left home. I've got my own apartment. I've moved to a different city, Leeds city in the UK. I got a job as a technician at the local university there, and just going about my work. But nobody spoke about this outer body travel. And I asked my friends, my family, I asked in the third party, I said, I have a friend of mine that travels outside of his body on a regular basis. And he says he can travel anywhere he wants to go. do you know anybody else that does that? The answer came back, no, 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 I must be imagining it. So, and there was no internet then, so I couldn't do the research. Perhaps I could have gone to a local library and looked it up, but I never thought of that. But anyway, so I decided to ask Art. He told me he's my guide and my teacher, and I went to bed that evening, and I held out my hand, I relaxed, I opened my mind, and I said, Art, I know there's a lot more information out there. Can you come and show me and share with me some more information? He came, he took hold of my hand. I left my body. I looked down, I could see my body fast asleep. And we went out through the window. And we just flew around the local subdivision where I lived. And then we came back in through the window. I saw my body fast asleep. And then I went back into my body. I woke up the following morning thinking, well, that was cool. But I wasn't certain whether I was dreaming or sleepwalking or what it was. So the next evening, I decided to do the same routine. I went to bed, I relaxed, I opened my mind, and I asked Art to come and show me some more. He came, he took hold of my hand. I looked down, I could see my body fast asleep. We left through the window. This time we went a bit further. We went down into the Leeds city centre. I recognised the building of the universities. I recognised the town hall and the hospital and the vibrant nightlife that was going on in Leeds City at that time. It was a very popular area for people for going out in the evening. And then we came back to my apartment. We flew in through the window. I looked down, I could see my body asleep, and I went back into my body. So I woke up the second morning, and I'm still not certain whether I'm dreaming, sleepwalking, or what's going on. Bearing in mind, I'm used to traveling outside of my body on my own, but not with someone else. So this was the first for me. So I thought I would ask for the third time, but I was a little perturbed about going out through the window because my apartment was on the third story and it was concrete pavement below. So I did the same again. I relaxed. I held my hand out, asked Art to come and show me more. He came. He took hold of my hand. I left my body. And I said to him, can we go out to the roof today? Because I'm not certain whether I'm dreaming, sleepwalking, and I'm not happy about being 3 stories up and going out through the window. He said, yes, no problem. So we went out through the roof. We traveled around, and then I came back to my apartment, saw myself fast asleep, and went back into my body. So that was quite an experience. And I've found that over the years, they give me different experiences. They don't sit me down in their classroom and teach me as I know they do with other experiences, but not with myself. They give me these experiences themselves. Anyway, I've been traveling with Art for quite a while. And then he came to me one evening and said, Kevin, I'm going to take you somewhere special this evening. Are you prepared to come with me? I said, yes, I'll go anywhere you want to go. So he took hold of my hand. Again, I always look down to make sure my body's still there. And we went out through the roof. And on this occasion, we kept going up and up and up. And I saw the Earth getting smaller, smaller, the beautiful blue planet just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And we went into a higher dimension. And when we went into that dimension, there was a line of people, a line of 30 people. And at the head of the line was my deceased father. And he was stood tall. I'd never seen him standing before because he was always in a wheelchair from when I was born. So he was standing there, a beaming smile on his face. And the love that was emanating from this group was just overwhelming love. And my father greeted me and said, Kevin, I'm going to introduce you to your family members going back 30 generations. So we set off down the line. And as I say, this feeling of love just emanating from the group was just very overwhelming, very overwhelming. And I was introduced to the first 15. The first 15 had a physical, or what appeared to be a physical. I saw them as I would see anybody else standing in front of me. And then when we got to halfway down the line, they were orange conscious energy orbs. So there was a line of 15 energy orbs then. But as I moved down the line and spoke to each one, they could still communicate with me telepathically, and they would show me their last incarnation. So I went down the line and did that. And then when I came back up the line and Art said, right, it's time to leave now, they tried to persuade me to stay. And I said, no, I've got things to do. I don't need to stay here. I know you're here and I'll come back and visit again. So I went on several occasions with Art and I got comfortable and confident that I did it on my own. And I went to visit with them over a 2-year period. But then I was finding it difficult to get back into my physical body. They were always trying to persuade me to stay. And I was finding it difficult to get back into the body. So I decided at work on that particular day that I wouldn't go back and see them again because of the problem I've outlined. But I thought, well, I'd better go back and let them know. I cannot just not go back. So I went back that evening. I spoke to them. I outlined the reasons why I didn't want to come back and see them again because of the difficulty in getting back into the physical body. They tried to persuade me to stay with them again. And I said, no, I'm enjoying my physical life down there on the third dimension. And I know you're here. And when my physical does expire and it does die, then I will come back and meet with you and join up with the family. So I left and I've never been back since. So that was, but that was quite an experience in relation to improving telepathic communication, seeing the higher levels of consciousness, both portraying a physical and portraying the conscious energy of. And bearing in mind, I was used to traveling myself as a pure conscious energy of. So it was nothing really, it just expanded my understanding and knowledge really through art showing me these things. So that would be, I'll say, 17, 18. When I got to, let's see, about 32, I didn't have a great deal happen between 18 and 30. So I was getting on with my life. I was meeting my deceased family and friends that had died would come and visit me at home. And I remember on one occasion, a friend of mine, she died of cancer. She was only in her 30s. And I was sat there on the sofa. My wife had gone to bed. And there was a change in the frequency in the room. And the vibration changed next to the fireplace. And I could see like an image, but I didn't get any communication other than it was a female and she was very apprehensive. Anyway, she disappeared. The following night, it happened again. Only this time I asked who it was. And it was a friend of mine, a female friend that I'd worked with, who recently she had a baby and then she died of cancer. And it was her. And she wanted me to pass a communication to her, as was her husband. But I didn't do it. I declined to do it because at that time, I didn't think it was important for me to convey messages to others. I do now, but I didn't then. But it was really an extension again, because you can communicate with these higher levels of consciousness, we can still communicate with our deceased family and friends. And over the years, I've done that on many occasions, and I accept the fact that when they give me a message, I do pass them on now. I don't get too many, but I do pass them on. So then, let me see, we got to about age 32, I think. At that time, I was a police officer in the UK. I've been in the police force a few years, and we used to do a quick changeover shift. And that shift entailed working from 2 o'clock, well, 10 o'clock in the evening. And then when you finished, obviously you go home and then you go back to work, get up at 5 o'clock and go back at 6 o'clock in the morning. And when I'd done that quick changeover shift, I was always tired. And I would come home about 2:30. I would go to bed for a couple of hours before my wife came home. And on this occasion, I got into bed and a shadow being came into the bedroom and he looked me directly in the eye and beckoned me like this. And they don't normally do that. I've seen shadow beings all my life. And I told him to go away. I said, I'm not interested. I'm tired. Go away. So he left. And then he came back a few minutes later and he looked directly at me. And I said, they don't do that. And he beckoned me again. And I said, no, go away. I'm tired. Come back when I'm not so tired. So he left and he came back a third time. And I thought, well, you're so persistent, so persistent. I will, I'll say what you want. You obviously want to show me something. I said, right, I'll get up. He left, he walked through the door. I got up, I didn't get dressed. I walked on, opened the door, walked onto the landing, and there was a beam of light. And I would describe that beam of light, if you ever watch the movie Star Trek, when they beam down to the planet, the beam of light was like that, from the floor to the ceiling. So I decided, well, you've got all this trouble to get me here, I'll step into the light. So I stepped into the beam of light. And immediately I felt euphoria, just total euphoria. And then this voice spoke to me and he said, I am your father. You are your father's son. And at that time, I didn't know who that was. I thought it might have been my deceased father. I found out later it was Ra. He'd come to visit. And why he gave me that information, I don't know. But I didn't go back to bed. As I say, I was just euphoric. My wife came home at 5 o'clock. I told her about the visit and the beam of light, and we actually went out for an evening meal, which we never did on a quick changeover because I was always too tired. So that would take me up to, let's say, about 32 now. And then a little bit later on, I moved to, I retired from the police force, moved to Florida. And obviously my contact continues with Contactee. And about 5 years ago, I was at home in bed and I got up to go to the bathroom and I came back to the bed. I got into bed. I was about to snuggle down and a bright light appeared outside the bedroom window. It then came in through the window, lit up the bedroom like a myriad of butterflies. Only it was just pure white light. And then Contactee materialized at the bottom of the bed. And after pleasantries, I asked them, what's the reason for your visit? And they said, Kevin, we would like you to talk about your lifelong interaction with us. We would like you to write about your lifelong interaction with us. I said, well, I don't mind talking about it, but I'm not a writer. And Art said, Kevin, we will continue to guide you. We will continue to teach you. You will write 2 books and we will give you information to include in the books. And so I agreed to do that. They left. The following morning, I started writing. And my first book, Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey, which is available on Amazon. And that's the reason why I speak out. I now speak out on many different podcasts and things, but I'm really sharing the message that they have, which is they've educated me in consciousness itself and how conscious energy can be used as a conduit for communication, for travel, for healing, for education, for creation and co-creation. That's the message they've given me. And within those experiences, I have had practical experiences of all those conduits of using consciousness in relation to that. If I give a simple explanation, traveling as a pure conscious energy orb, that comes into the travel side, out of body. There are different levels of consciousness where you can remote view and see somewhere else because of the consciousness itself. You can travel on the astral plane, out of body. You can travel on the astral plane as a pure conscious energy orb. And these are the levels that you can use for traveling, using consciousness itself. And then obviously the others, the education they've given me, the creation, because we create using thought and consciousness, and then co-create using thought and consciousness. So I'm able now to co-create with my ET Star Families because I have an understanding of consciousness itself. And on the one occasion, I was sat by my pool here in Florida, and I was given a download of information. The download was about the quantum unified field theory, of which at the time I didn't know anything about. And when they gave me that information, I said to them, look, you've just given me all this information about the quantum unified field theory, and I know nothing about it. Can you show me a craft to confirm the information has come from you? And the craft appeared immediately outside of my pool cage. I went in to get my wife, Sandy. I said, Sandy, come out, there's a craft, come and have a look. So she came out, the craft was still there. We stepped outside of our pool cage. Second craft appeared. A third craft appeared. Fourth, fifth, sixth, 7 craft in total. They flew silently over our heads, not very high. They were moving slowly, and then they changed direction by about 80 degrees and disappeared sequentially as they had arrived. So that gave me the confirmation in relation to the quantum unified field theory. And what they said in that, if I can remember it correctly, your scientists' understanding of non-locality, duality, and entanglement are correct. However, non-locality, duality, and entanglement is of consciousness itself in all matter at a subatomic level, at the quantum level. So I understand that now from how they've explained it. But at that time, I don't think our scientists included the consciousness within their quantum unified field theory. And my ET guide said if they included consciousness within their own quantum unified field theory, then it would expand their own understanding of their own theories themselves. So really, it's just expanding that to include that within. And then another download I received, I was just relaxing, minding my own business, not doing anything. And I got a download about the theory of everything. And I said, oh, you've just given me this download, all this information in an instant that I know nothing about the theory of everything. And I said, can you show me a craft to confirm the information has come from you and it's not just my imagination? A craft appeared immediately outside the pool cage and it just flashed 1, 2, 3 times. So that was sufficient for me with that. And within that information, if I can remember it correctly, they said that your scientists' understanding of the weak force, the strong force, the electromagnetic force, and the gravitational force are correct. However, there is a fifth force of consciousness itself. And if your scientists include consciousness within their own theory of everything, it will expand their understanding of it. So again, information that I wasn't aware of. I am now because I've spoken about it, I've looked into it, and I have some understanding of it now. And just recently, I was asked by a leading scientist. He contacted me, and I gave a talk on Jeff Mara's YouTube podcast, which is still up there, still out there, if anybody's interested. And this leading scientist saw this podcast, and he contacted me, and he's researched consciousness all his life, been involved in the theoretical side of consciousness, and he contacted me, and a lot of his theories fit hand in glove into the practical experiences that I have had with the communication, the travel, the healing, the education, the creation and co-creation. It fits hand in glove. And on one occasion, he asked me to, he said, Kevin, can you ask Orton D about the void? And I thought, I don't know anything about the void. What's the void? I've never heard of it. So I asked Orton D, and they gave me in reply, they gave me an equation for the void of consciousness itself with an explanation. I conveyed the equation to this leading scientist with the explanation, and he was amazed and he understood the equation. I now understand the importance of the void of consciousness itself, because from that void of consciousness, we create, we co-create using thought and consciousness. And when I was about 18, Art came to me one evening and said, Kevin, I'm going, where would you like to go tonight? That was it. Where would you like to go? And I said, I was being a bit flippant. I said, I would like to go to the end of the universe, I said. And he says, right, okay. So we set off. I held his hand and we left out to the roof and we went on and traveled and traveled and traveled and traveled. And then we sat down and we sat down. I was quite perturbed because I was completely lost. And I said to him when we sat down, I said, I hope you know the way back because I am lost. I said, I wait at the end of the universe. And he said, no, we are at the end of consciousness. I didn't understand that then. I do now, because the reality is created from the void of consciousness for creation and co-creation for the realities that we live in. Now, it's interesting that I didn't understand it then, but I do now. And the void is not vacant of everything. It is not void as the name suggests. It's full of potential. It's full of intention. It's full of creation. It's full of co-creation. We just have to access it through thought, our own thoughts and consciousness to create. And then we can create timelines. And that's the beauty of consciousness. That's the beauty of who we are as a species. We have these abilities once we have this understanding. And that's really where I'm working towards now with other groups, with people like Rebecca Hardcastle-Wright and the Exo Conscious community. We are sharing all this information between the different members of the Exo Conscious community and working forward towards creating, co-creating a new timeline. And this timeline will include our ET Star Families ambassadors. And I have been told that they have reached out to our governments in the past, and the governments are not ready yet. So the reveal itself of the ET Star Families ambassadors' presence will come from a request from the citizens of Earth. And once we share this information in relation to creation, co-creation, and understanding consciousness, then we can reach out to them with that request. And I think that request will come from many different groups coming together who have that understanding. So that's where we are headed. And I think it's important to understand that our ET Star Families are here, or the ones that I'm working with, to assist with our evolution, to assist with the healing of the planet. I know they are very concerned about our pollution. I know they are very concerned about Fukushima in relation to the radiation. And they tell me that they have technologies that can help clean up this pollution. And when we have open contact, then they will share many of these technologies with us. So we are on the right path. My mission itself, which I've known for many, many years, is to help facilitate the reveal itself. And as I said earlier, the reveal is the reveal of our ET Star Families ambassadors' presence here. But it has to come from the citizens of Earth. And as I say, there are a number of groups that are working towards that. So hopefully, well, not hopefully, I'm sure we are going to achieve it. We have to achieve it because we are in a timeline that is splitting at the moment. And there's a Hopi prophecy that states that there are two timelines. And on one timeline, we become extinct. On the other timeline, we go on to the golden years for humanity. I don't think we will become extinct because we have this knowledge of creation and co-creation and creating timelines themselves. And we will work towards this. And if we may well have a split, I listened to a documentary the other day, what was his name? Peter L. And he was talking about the two timelines. The information that I've been given by my ET Star family fits in exactly with what he was saying. And he's saying these two timelines are now coming close together and can possibly merge and create a new timeline. But when we understand that, and we understand that the key to that is thought and consciousness itself, then we are the creators of our own reality. We are the creators of this timeline. So I'm quite excited for the future, and I'm sure we can achieve this with many other groups that are working towards this. So one more thing before I take questions. I have, it's totally off topic really, other than it's to do with consciousness and communication. And I've already spoke about the things that consciousness can be used for. My brother is a retired aircraft engineer. He had his own business. He was very successful. And he retired a few years ago and moved down to Spain. He lived in the UK and he was based mainly in the UK, but he did travel globally. And he said to me, Kevin, you should see the size of the butterflies in Spain. They're absolutely huge. And I said to him, well, why don't you go out and ask the butterfly to come and land on your hand? He said, oh, they won't do that. Because being a nuts and bolts and engineer, he said, no, they won't do that. I said, well, indulge me. He's got couple of balconies that overlook the Mediterranean Sea. I said, go out onto the balcony. When you see the butterfly fly past, hold your hand out and ask the butterfly to come and land on your fingers or on your hand. But I said, you'll need a reason. So tell it that you want to look at the beautiful colours on its wings. So he went outside, he indulged me, he held his hand out, a butterfly flew past, he asked it with the reason why, it flew out of sight, turned around, came back and landed on his fingers. He was amazed by that. I said, right, now what you need to do is ask the butterfly to fly away and come back with a friend, but you need a reason. And the reason is you want to compare the colours on the other butterfly. So the butterfly took off, went outside, came back, landed back on his fingers, and the second one landed on his forehead. And he compared the colours. On that particular day, he had 12 landings of butterflies. I've got photographs of all this. He was astounded. But that's really the level of understanding of consciousness in relation to communication. And if we can communicate with our beautiful butterflies, then we can extend that to the different levels of consciousness in relation to the animal realms, the plants, the trees, the animals, and then up to the higher conscious beings, up to our extraterrestrials, up to our deceased family and friends, and then even the angelic realms, and all the way up to source energy. We have those abilities. We just have to develop them and use them, as I have done. But I'm fortunate that I was guided and taught how to do these things. But I'm nothing. I'm just a normal, everyday person with a normal education, other than I've been assisted by my ET Star Families guide. So I like that story because I call my brother now the butterfly whisperer, and he still does it. Recently, unfortunately, his wife passed, and he took his wife's ashes with one of his sons to be released where she wanted them to be released. And while he was releasing them, just him and his son, this big butterfly flew past in Scotland, and he said to the butterfly, "Can you come and land on me?" And the butterfly came and landed on his son. I mean, that's the level of understanding of consciousness. And now he does it all the time. When he's out, he'll ask the butterflies to come and land on him. That's a simple example. But when we use that and then have that full understanding of consciousness itself, then we will evolve as a species and become a true galactic species, which is who we really are. I believe that our history has been hidden from us, our galactic history has been denied us. We are multidimensional beings. We are light beings. We are consciousness itself, creating the physical realms that we are learning by appearing in, shall we say. So.
Wow. Oh, wow. That was great. I love that story that you shared about the butterfly. And I'm going to try that. I raise monarch butterflies. And if you can see, I have a butterfly background. And when they hatch, they let me pick them up. You know, they sit on my finger and I talk to them, and then they fly off. And I'm going to try that because I plant milkweed and they always come, the monarchs come in all different butterflies.
Well, try that and let me know how you get on, because you can do it. I've done it with dragonflies as well. Dragonflies do it. I saved a dragonfly. It was stuck in some netting that was covering my vegetables down here, and I couldn't get it out. And then I went inside to get some scissors. I managed to cut it free without damaging it, and it just flew off. And I thought, well, that's it. Later on in the day, I was out with my dog, and this dragonfly came flying right around, all around me, through my legs and everywhere. And it came right up to my fingertips, but it wouldn't land on me. But then later on in the day, I went out and with my dogs, and all the dragonflies that were eating on the plants stopped eating and followed me, walked back again. And then some while later, I was pressure washing my drive, and I don't know much about dragonflies. I don't know how long they live, but this big, large dragonfly was flying around me, through my legs, around my head, the same color as the one that I'd saved. And I nearly hit it with the pressure washer. And I said, "Oh, be careful, I don't want to hurt you." So I turned the pressure washer off, and it came and landed on my forehead. And I think that was the dragonfly that I saved from the netting. So, yeah. So we have that connection. And once you realize you have that connection to your shared consciousness with nature with the higher conscious beings, with the extraterrestrials. We're just expanding our knowledge and how we treat one another, really.
Mhm. And I like how you stated to your brother that don't just ask it to land, tell it why you want it to land, so that the butterfly had information about why it needed to do that job, that specific job, right?
Exactly. And I learned that I went to a lecture at a conference, and the guy there was talking about communication with animals. And I love animals, I love nature. And he told us how to do that. And he told us we had to ask that. You needed a reason. And I remember when we had the break, we all went outside and there were some picnic tables there. And there was a young girl walking around with a lamb, a small lamb. And I said, "Oh, why are you walking around with a lamb?" She says, "Oh, well, there's a new lamb. And I'm trying to get him used to people, but he won't go up to anybody yet." I said, "Oh, what type of lamb is he?" She said, "Oh, he's a merino lamb." I said, "Oh, okay then." So I thought, I'm going to try this new skill. So I'm sat there with my coffee, and I said to this lamb telepathically, "I think you're a beautiful lamb. I understand you're a merino lamb, and your fleece is very soft and special. Will you come up to me so I can stroke your fleece and feel how special you are?" Anyway, nothing happened. So I was still drinking my coffee, and then I felt something tickling my leg, and it was a lamb. It walked all the way up to me. So I stroked his fur, his fleece, and I said, "Oh, thank you very much for coming up to me. You're such a beautiful lamb, and I love your fleece. It's so soft. You're so special." And he wandered off. He started eating his grass. So I finished my coffee, and I went back into the farmhouse to get another coffee, and it was a galley kitchen, and the coffee was at the far end. I walked all the way down to fill my coffee. I filled my coffee, turned around, and the lamb was behind me. It followed me all the way in. So that was another example of communication telepathically. We're using thought and consciousness with the lamb itself. And when I came out, the young girl said, "Kevin, that's the first time he's approached anybody." But I only did that because I was taught that by the guy who was giving the lecture, and I was willing to practice it. And that's the key, being willing to practice it and having the knowledge and the abilities to do it then. So
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that here. And I'm sure everybody is, next time they're out in nature, they're going to try your little experiment, see what happens. I wanted to maybe ask a couple. The first one I wanted to ask you about, when you met your beings that you were working with, are these still the same beings that you're working with today? And what did you find out about the mantis being? Because I also, and I know a couple people in this group had connections with the mantis beings. So,
okay, yeah, well, there's actually 8 beings, and yeah, I'm still in contact with all 8. As I refer to them as the Council of 8, and the mantis being Chica, I don't know a great deal about him, other than he's very old, he's very wise, and he's very well respected within the group himself. The main contact that I've had has been through Orton D from the educational side in understanding consciousness. But I know on one occasion, I have a weird sense of humor. I said to him once when I met him on one occasion, I said to him if he was I asked him, "Are you an entomologist?" And he wasn't happy about that. He gave me this look, when you're a young child and you say something that's inappropriate, and your mother gives you that look. Well, this Chica, the mantis being, gave me that look. So, but I don't. I'm not surprised by his features now. I do like him, but I don't know very much about him at all.
okay, well, thank you for sharing that. And that, when I met the mantis being too, my impression was just very wise, very kind, gentle, very wise. And I also had so many of them being born right around my doorways and outside my patio door. It was just so many synchronicities around the mantis, the praying mantis.
I think that's the key as well. I get little mantis beings here, and I'll go up to them and I talk to them, on the gatepost and things like that, because I believe they're an extension of the larger mantis beings.
Yes.
They're an extended family, only they're in the 3rd dimension here with us, and not in the 5th dimension where they can be a much larger being and grown into. But I still suspect they're very wise, even though they're very small. But yeah, it's that respect for nature itself because of that understanding of shared consciousness. That little mantis being I see on my gatepost, I'm privileged that he's here and sharing his consciousness with mine. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. And I've had experiences where when I talk to them, they literally just turn their head and they they look right at me as if they understand every word, and I believe they do. So, and I also they're
I
protected.
think they do. Yeah, I think I talk to. We've got little lizards as well, and I talk to them, and they look at you, and you can see their eyes looking at you. They know that you're talking, and they also. I think they understand exactly what you're saying because they may not answer back telepathically, or they haven't done with me. But I know on one occasion I watched a documentary about crows, and I thought I don't have any crows in my life. I'd love to have a crow in my life. The following day, a crow appeared in my back garden. And I'd lived here then about 8 years in this house. Never seen a crow land anywhere. And so I went and got some food for it, gave it some food. And it then started squawking and brought three of its friends. And now every day I've got four crows that come, probably for the food. But I asked initially, I'd love to have a crow. And a crow appeared in my yard. And I have a relationship with it now because I can get to within 4 feet of it and talk to it. And it looks at me and it comes and it squawks. It asks for food. It's food, yeah. So it's again, it's once we understand that connection to the consciousness within the reality that we share, and then you expand that out towards the extraterrestrials. It's just amazing to me.
Perfect. I love that.
Yeah, hi, Kevin.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, I was interested in this thing that we're calling the shift, this upgrade in consciousness. And I was wondering if a couple things, have your ET contacts, have they talked about it? And have they talked about it in terms of any kind of date information? And also, if they have mentioned what role free choice, what role free choice
Oh, okay.
plays
Well,
in
we'll
the,
start with the last bit. Free
yeah,
choice, free will. It's a
yeah,
part of who we are. We do have that choice. We do have that free will. They don't talk about it as a shift in the how you are understanding it, if I'm correct in that. But they talk about the timelines, the changing of timelines. That will be a shift. And the balance of the two timelines within the reality that we are currently existing in, we have some control over that. We can shift that timeline reality to create what we want. So that would be the shift. And they do say that there's also another fork in our path, in our future, where within transhumanism itself, where we will go down the route of the augmented by technology, by like having the cloud, having the internet, having implants, but we will then rely on technology as humanity to survive. But the other fork, we will go on the fork that I've taken, which I prefer, is we develop our own abilities. So we don't need the technologies. We use consciousness itself as the conduit for all those things, albeit technology can replace consciousness in relation to communication, travel, healing, education, creation, and co-creation. But I prefer to do that as a human individual and evolve into a higher human species using those abilities. And these are the options that are open to us. And there may well be two timelines that travel side by side. One where we go down the augmentation using internet technologies, clouds for information, brain transplant, not transplants, chips in the brain and things like that, or the one I've described that I use. I already use that, and they may well run along side by side. They may merge later on. I don't know that, but they are here to help with the evolution of our human species. That's the group that I'm working.
thank you.
I just want to say thank you very much for all you've done. It's been very interesting. And actually nice to actually hear someone talking about the consciousness and telepathy. When I contact the other beings, I can talk to them most of the time, but when I contact with the mantis beings, because they're so advanced, I find it very difficult and painful to maintain conversation with them. Do you have like a similar thing where different level beings have higher consciousness and it's harder for you to understand and retain it? Or is you, because you've been doing it for so long, you can just do it all good?
I think in answer to that question, because I've been doing it for so long, I don't have any difficulty to do it. But that may be the reason why I don't have a great deal of connection with Chica, the mantis being, because perhaps his level of consciousness, perhaps I haven't attained that yet. I don't know, but he's part of the group of 8, and I'm able to do what I can travel outside of my physical body as a pure conscious energy orb. Orton D do that. I was traveling outside my body as a pure conscious energy orb, which was one of the higher levels of consciousness for travel, when they came alongside me in a conscious craft that they had created through thought and consciousness. They invited me onto the craft. I went through the skin of the craft, and when I did that, I could feel that it was conscious. They gave me some information to convey to someone else, but that's another story. But I did ask them on another occasion, let me see if I understand this correctly. What's happening here? We've got 3 beings, one that lives in the 3rd dimension, that would be, 2 beings that live in the 5th dimension, traveling out of body on a conscious craft on the astral plane that you've created. They said, yes, that's correct. Then I said, I see you 2 as pure conscious energy orbs, slightly vibrating, 4 to 6 inches across, orangey yellow in color. How do you see me? And they said, Kevin, we see you exactly the same. So these are the levels of consciousness that we can attain, and perhaps we may have difficulty with your mantis beings because it's a slightly different frequency. But because I think I've been doing it for so long, I can just have a normal conversation. But how I learned to improve the telepathic ability was to, whenever I receive information as a download or telepathic communication, I would always ask for confirmation of something simple, like you've just given me this download. Can you turn that street light off? And the street light would go off immediately. Or if it's daytime and they give me some information telepathically, can you turn that street light on? Because I want confirmation that it's come from you, and then they turn it on. And when you do that all your life with all the telepathic communication, you become very confident in it in relation to, and all we're really doing is using consciousness itself, that shared consciousness, which falls into the quantum unified field theory of non-locality, duality, and entanglement of consciousness itself at that subatomic level, at the quantum level. We're just tapping into it and using that as a conduit. So when you understand that and you have confidence in the thoughts that you are receiving when you make a request, and then if you use the synchronicity as well, which usually coincides with it, they'll give me information that wake me up at 1:11 a.m. in the morning or 2:22, and then give me information with that. And sometimes I've even asked, can you show me a butterfly? And the butterfly will just fly past, And when you keep doing that, time and time again, you become very confident. So I would just persevere, David, with the mantis and see if you... Now, with my level of telepathic communication, I also see visually. So I was speaking to Tia. I mentioned Tia when I was doing my talk, and he was flying a craft. He was flying near my home, and I was in bed now. I was just getting up. I thought, I'll see if I can contact the Council of 8, see what they're doing. I wasn't able to connect with them, but I connected with Tia. He's a pilot, a technician, a grey. And as I'm speaking with him, I see him, and he's in a craft with 6 or 7 other greys, and he's flying it because he's a pilot and a technician. And I asked him what was he doing in this location, and he said, well, we were nearby, and we came to see where you live. But because of the telepathic communication has the visual aspect to it, plus emotional communication as well. I have all 3. So that makes for a better communication. And on this occasion, I got confirmation from my wife, because after the short conversation with him, he said to me, we will have to leave now, because I said I was off our designated flight path. So they left. nothing unusual for me for that talking with the telepathic communication with the visual, because I see where they are. And then I got up, I went out onto my pool deck with my wife. She was already sat there having a cup of tea. I was having a coffee. And she said, "Oh, you missed the most beautiful rainbow this morning." I said, "Oh, did you get a photograph?" She said, "Yes, I did." And then she said, "You'll never guess what happened next." I said, "No, what happened next?" She said, "A metallic disc-shaped craft appeared under the rainbow. And at the back of my home, I have 5 acres, and the rainbow was from fence line to fence line, 180 degrees. I said, "Did you get a photograph?" She said, "Yes." So I then looked at the photograph of the rainbow with the craft. The craft is slightly blurred, as they always are, but it was a great photograph. But then I looked at the time on the photograph. It was the exact same time I was talking to Tia in the bedroom on my clock next to the bed. That's confirmation. And once you get that throughout your life, but now that they're bringing my wife into the communication as well, and I know Zach, he moves her personal items around the home, much to her disdain. And I asked him why he did that once, and he said that he likes teasing her. He thinks it's funny, but there's a serious side to let her know that we are here, we are amongst you. So it's nice that they're reaching out to my wife now and giving her a communication, because it helps me, because I'm doing lots of Zooms and things, and it does interfere sometimes with what we're doing. So just persevere with that telepathic communication. You can improve on it, and ask for help as well. They can activate our DNA. Our DNA are encoded light frequencies, and they can be activated. So ask your ETs if they will activate your DNA to improve your telepathic communication.
Okay, thank you very much.
Awesome. Good question, David. Right, now we have Betsy. Hello, Betsy.
Hi, that was a great talk, and my mind is kind of like swimming in it right now. So I have a lot of questions, but some of them I don't even know really what to ask. So I'll start with the ones I do know to ask. So you talked about you said that scientists should include consciousness into the theory of everything. So, and then you said consciousness would be the fifth. What was it you were saying? I didn't quite get it all.
Yeah, what were they saying? That our scientists' understanding of the theory of everything, which included the weak force, the strong force, the electromagnetic force, the gravitational force, but it also includes the fifth force, which is consciousness itself. And these are the forces that control our reality.
Okay. And so can you kind of like relate that to like when you're talking about the 2 timelines? Like it sounds almost like they split and now they're coming back together. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. Apparently there's a cycle of these times, which I didn't know until I watched, I can't remember his name now. The scientist talking about it the other day, and I wish I could remember his name. And what he did, he put into a graphics talking about sacred geometry, the Fibonacci sequences, and what was the third thing he did? I forget now. It was a very good lecture of what he was talking about, but it fell into line with what my ET guys were telling me about these 2 timelines and how they can come together. But now we have this information that we can create the timelines, and we do that. Then we are in a position to choose which way we want to go, which way we would like to go. I'll see if I can find the guy's name, and he's on YouTube. And in fact, if you send me I've got it on my Facebook. I can send you the actual lecture, and it's very interesting because he explains it. But it's interesting to me because it fits in with what my ETs are telling me. Because I'm not a scientist. At the end of the day, I'm just a normal everyday guy. And so they're giving me these information that I don't always fully understand, but I relay the information and messages to hopefully people that do understand them. But I am finding that it's all coming together now in relation. The purpose is to have a better understanding of consciousness itself. That's the key.
So you also mentioned that you're working with the XO conscious community to create a new timeline. Is that what
Yes.
okay. And how can like how is that being done? Like is there like are there things that we as average people can do in our daily lives to try to help that along or to try to improve conditions on Earth?
Yes, yes. The fact that we think about it, if you are aware that there's a group of people who are trying to create a timeline, which includes the reveal of our 80 Star Families ambassadors with the Council of Eight, then you're expanding our collective consciousness just by talking about it. We're expanding that now by talking about it because you've raised it. If you raise that issue with others, then we're expanding that collective consciousness. And you can join the Exo Conscious community. It's free to join. You can get newsletters. There's free videos to watch. In fact, I'm doing a recording tomorrow with a group of, I think, 7 of us who are working on the timeline for the creation of the reveal itself, because we have an understanding of how it is done. So check out Exo Conscious Community with Rebecca Hardcastle-Wright and sign up for the free newsletters and the free videos and things. And I don't know when I did one a couple of weeks ago with Rebecca. She's going to show that one. And then the one we're doing tomorrow, she's going to link that one with the whole group. In answer to your question, Betsy, 7, there might be more, I don't know. I don't know how many is in the total group, but this particular group of 7, we've been working towards this for over a year now, probably coming up to 2 years. But because we are learning through one another's abilities and expanding our understanding of creation and co-creation, then we are the creators of our own reality. And that's where, by you talking about it to your families, your friends, your other groups, you are helping and expanding that consciousness.
Wonderful. And I have just one more quick question. You kind of mentioned that Ra said, I am your father and you are my son. Like, is it your understanding that like is Ra just a name that the universal consciousness throughout at you, do you think? Or like is it your understanding that there is just like God is like a universal consciousness, or what are your thoughts about all that?
Okay, very in-depth questions there.
I know.
Did ask my ET guides at one point if they believed in God, and they said yes, they do, which I thought was a good thing. But they said not in the relation to one deity like you do. We believe in the source of consciousness itself is the creator, but it's created through the manifestations of the physical. And then the physical creates the reality where consciousness itself expands. So it's really a circle that goes round and round. And when you understand the importance of that, then it shows that we are in charge of our own reality, our own destiny. And don't think, before you want something, before you desire something, you have to have the thought first. I recently bought a new vehicle, and I had the thought of what vehicle I wanted. I had the thought of the interior that I wanted. I had the thought of specific details of the car I wanted. And I got the exact car that I wanted with all those details because I created that. But I had to work upon it as well. That's what I wanted. That's what I desired. That's what I was trying to manifest. And I now have the vehicle, I've had it a few months now, sat in my driveway exactly. Well, that's the same with creating a timeline. It's no different in relation to who we are and the abilities that we have as the human species.
Okay, thank you. Can you just briefly state why you think they said Ra? Like
What Ra is, Ra tells me that he's very ancient. He lived in the ancient Egyptian times. When I see him like an ancient Sumerian. And I asked him if he was the ancient Egyptian god Ra. And he said, no, he's not. But I'm not certain whether that's his perception of himself, because if he turned up in the ancient Egyptian times with all his technology, the people on Earth at that time would think he was a god and refer to him as a god. But clearly he's not. He's an Anunnaki, a very old species. So I'm not fully certain with him, but I know his energy is extremely powerful. I've channeled him a couple of times, and there's a channel of me on my website, kevinjbriggs.com. And if you go onto events and media, scroll down, there's a channel I did at the free conference in Miami in 2019, and I channel Ra. And if you watch that, you will see that the energy that comes through me, it makes me extremely hot. And I know when I was working with Kathleen Marden, Denise Stoner, and Dr. Melanie Barton, channeling the Council of Eight for the information, they measured the immediate air temperature around me as I was channeling, and it rose anything between 7 and 10 degrees. And the reason of that is because the higher conscious beings, when they access our physical, those higher vibrations create that heat. And that, in fact, that's mentioned, I think, in this book here, if you're interested. That's Forbidden Knowledge by Kathleen Marden. And I think that's Kathleen on the back, you can see here. She's very well known in the ufology circles. And I worked with Kathleen for 2 years with, as I said, with Denise and Melanie Barton. And I channeled, and half this book are transcripts of some of those channels. So you might find those interesting. And I think that's available on Amazon as well. So
Thank you.
Wow. You just blew my mind today. But thank you.
All right, thank you, Betsy. You had mentioned about Fukushima, and they were concerned about that. Can you talk more about that and how they are helping with that? Because that's been a concern of mine for a while. I know
okay.
into the ocean, and I don't know that that was ever stopped. So do you know anything more about that?
I know very little about it. I know that when I was channeling on one occasion, I'd have to go through the transcripts and see which one it was. They mentioned Fukushima. They started talking about the pollution on the planet. They were very concerned about it. And then they said they were particularly concerned about the radioactive pollution coming from Fukushima. Now, I don't know whether it's still leaking or not. I've no idea. I did see an article where it said there's an underground water passage that goes from the mountains, which is a natural stream, as it were, under the plant into the Pacific Ocean. But I don't know anything about that. It was just an article that I read. But I know that I've read some other articles where the UFOs were seen after the explosion in relation to, and I suspect they were probably trying to help clean it up. But they have told me that they will share their technologies that will help with the pollution, not just at Fukushima, but on Earth itself. So really, there are certainly benefits to being open and having open contact with our ET Star Families. They've got many technologies to help with healing. And I'm also aware of a lady called Dr. Michael, I can't tell her names at the moment, and she's been given downloads for some EE systems which help heal. And that's come directly from the ETs themselves. It's Dr. Sandra Rose Michaels. If you look her up, and they have a EE system. There's one up in Orlando that's just opened up, and there's I think there's 200 centres at the moment, and that's all ET technology that's been passed down through Dr. Sandra Rose Michaels. So they are already sharing, but the positive side of what the ETs do doesn't always get shared, only within the ufology groups and things like that. But there's so check out Dr. Rose Michaels and see what information she's got. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I am aware that there are beings, during a lot of my experiences in 2016, there were different beings that they were showing themselves to me that were here to work on the pollution and and working to heal the planet. So I was very happy to meet them and to find out about that. So that's a good thing. So does anybody else have any questions? There we
Hello,
go.
hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi. Kevin, you said you referred to the Council of Eight as men. Do they have gender?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think about that. Yes, I think yes they do. Yes, because Anna came across as a female, the bluebird type being. Art is, I know he's male because he just looks like a human, does Art. Dee is female. Zach comes across as a male. He's a small gray. I'll say he's a mathematician, engineer. He designs propulsion systems. He has 3 offspring. And a few years ago, he went back home to the Pleiades system because he was having problems with his family. So they have similar problems to what we do. You don't think about that, but they do. And Tag, he come across as a male. Chica, I don't know. I don't know. Being that mantis being, I didn't get any information in relation to a gender. And Orla is definitely female, yes. So.
Well, Chica and Tia in Spanish are aunt and girl.
Oh, really? Oh, well.
Chica means girl and Tia means aunt. So that's why I was wondering.
Okay. I'll have to ask him or her.
A follow up. Do they have birth and death?
That's a good question. I asked Orton D, and they said that they live for about 300 of our Earth years. But I suspect that's while they're here on Earth. When they're out in space, I'm sure time slows down and they probably live a lot longer. It's the gravitational forces that help us age, I'm sure, and reduce that. But yeah, they said 300 years. That was for Orton D. I haven't asked the others other than Ra, and I know he was alive in the ancient Egyptian times, and he's a 9th dimensional being. He's a very high level being. And there's also another member not of the Council of Eight. This person is female. Her name is Shiva, and she spells her name Shiva. Shiva. No, not a lie. Sheeva, Shiva. And but she's a great healer. She sits at the right-hand side of Ra and oversees the Council of Eight, and she's a 9th dimensional being as well. And she's a great healer. I know a couple of years ago I had a couple of moles on my left elbow and one on my right wrist, and I'd had them for quite a while. And then they started growing, cracking, and bleeding and itching. So I Googled them, and it said that on the Google, it showed us some photographs that they were skin melanoma. So I thought, well, I better go and see the doctor and have them removed. But that night, I asked Shiva and the Council of Eight if they could remove the melanoma. Otherwise, I would have to make an appointment at my regular doctor in the morning to have them removed. I went to bed. I woke up in the morning. The 2 on my left elbow completely disappeared. Totally new skin, nothing, no scar, no nothing. The one on my right wrist had a red line around the periphery where the melanoma had been, and then that disappeared by lunchtime. So, but I've introduced Shiva to Dr. Melanie Barton, and now she works with Shiva psychically in a healing chamber, and she's healed people with Shiva in this healing chamber. Again, it's using the consciousness itself with that healing modality that it has. Once you understand it and can reach out, and we can reach out because we are multidimensional beings, we can ask help from our extended family, our extended multidimensional beings, and they will help. And I know Shiva, she loves to help. And I've heard people talk with Dr. Melanie Barton in relation to going into this healing chamber through meditation, through psychic abilities, and being healed of several different ailments. So we have to, if we learn all this, we can help heal ourselves. I ask if I get ill, if they'll help me. If they don't, then I'll go down the conventional route or whatever. But the opportunity is there to ask. And in my occasion, they have helped. But there's a chapter in Ray Hernandez's book, Beyond UFOs. about healings by our ET star families. And I was talking to a guy the other day. What was his name? Oh, my memory's getting terrible now. And he'd been healed by the ETs, and he's in Jim Forsyth, I think his name is, and he's in the book. And I was talking to him the other day. I didn't know he was in the book, but he's an example of healing through the ETs. So these are real people getting healed by asking. So what better? You can't have anything better than that, really, at the end of the day. So, but they always like to be asked. That's one of the keys to ask.
Yep.
One more quick question. You said we can develop this ability. How do we start?
So I missed the word you used. What did you say?
At one point you said we can develop. I'm not sure if it's the psychic ability or spiritual ability.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, we can all develop these abilities. I think I was assisted, but how many people think, I'll just phone my sister, or I'll phone my mother, or I'll phone my friend, and then a friend phones you. That's a form of telepathic communication. We all have that. I used to have that with my brother when I was younger. I'd phone him up and it would be engaged because he was ringing me at the same time, because I'd already put it out there that I was going to speak to him. So we have these abilities. We just don't use them because people don't talk about them. I've got a friend, she had a couple of twins, and one of them didn't speak until, I don't know how old she was, but one of them did all the talking, and the other one just looked, and they got up and did things together. And Barbara asked one of the girls, she said, how do you know what so-and-so wants to do? Well, she thinks it, so we go and do it. So it was natural, but because we don't use it, we lose it, I think. So it's really learning to trust the thoughts that you have. You have to ask a question, say, of a deceased family member, and a thought comes back to you. Very often that is the answer to your question, but then we doubt our own minds that it's just your imagination.
I love that.
Once you get over that and become confident and comfortable, and then ask for confirmation by something totally different each time, then you can develop that own ability.
Beautiful. Just a quick comment. I don't know if you have it over there. We have it a series over here on the History Channel called Ancient Aliens, Giorgio Tsoukalos and David Childress. And they say that the ETs are very concerned about our nuclear development, our industries.
Yes, without a doubt. They've told me that. They said they're very concerned about our nuclear weapons. They also said in a channel that I did that they've demonstrated to our governments, world governments, that they're able to activate our new nuclear weapons launch codes. They're also able to deactivate our nuclear weapons launch codes. And they've also demonstrated with a new ballistic missile they had some many years ago, I think it was the first 2 or 3 stage one, when it reached its maximum height and velocity, they shot it down. So our governments know the technologies that our ET star families have. And they've said to me directly that they will only intervene if we use our nuclear weapons against ourselves again, they said, because we've reached this level of technology in our ancient past and destroyed our societies. They don't want that to happen this time, and they will only step in on that one occasion. We have to control our own weapons, and we have to invite them here. But our nuclear weapons are now outdated, and they've shown that. And so if the governments do use them, then the ETs will be here. And I don't think our governments really want them here just at the moment. They are releasing more information. We've had the congressional hearing on that. So more information is coming out. So we just have to keep moving forward, keep asking our ET guys, and ask to improve your own abilities and see what happens.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
This is totally brand new to me. I started just 3 weeks ago in the learning about this. So it's very new, but immediately I'm resonating from the very beginning. And especially with the feline orbs, got some healing from that already. but my background is Buddhist studies, decades of that. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama has worked for decades to study consciousness, have scientists study consciousness to be included, like you said, consciousness included in physics, but brought to the attention of the world. He's worked tirelessly for peace, and that's part of the peace, is to bring this consciousness and include it in science. And so there's a lot of synchronicities and coming together with my whole life, my perceptions. My mind is actually expanding just in the 3 weeks because of being introduced into this area. And I feel like I have already a guide, a feline alien guide. So what I've always been interested in is bridging Buddhism, which is dying, into the principles and the way I learned and others through meditation, with spirituality, just all the same, but the principles are very similar. And I'm seeing that that's, I mean, that's why I'm here. That's why I was born, to communicate this. And just in the 3 weeks, I'm seeing so much of my narrow view from Buddhism just expanded hugely. So thank you all.
Yes, thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's great that you are learning all this, just expanding on what you already know. You already have a guide, a feline guide. Ask her. You're now on probably a fast-track journey. When you go to bed this evening, ask your guides for more information, as I did when I was a 17-year-old. And then ask your guide what his or her name is, and ask where she's from. And very often, the dreams are a modality of contact. And if I've been contacted in many dreams, and I'll ask a question before I go to bed. And then very often I'm given the answer as I wake up in the morning. So just persevere with that, Stephanie.
Well, what I want to follow up on is I've been doing that for years with guides in other forms. But just because this apparently is an important part of my journey, I was guided 3 weeks ago to expand and have guides, other kinds of guides too. So I already have experience with this, and I've been doing a lot of healing with guides and higher consciousness because I feel the vibrations. But I've been doing that intensely for the last 7 years, but the last 2 really intense, and lots of healing because I was in pretty bad physical shape a year and a half ago, and so much has been healed through this process. But it's just nice not to have it in a narrow perspective or viewpoint, to be open for any form or any shape that's good and wholesome, not just aliens or ETs. I don't know what else there is, but everything. Anyway, I'm pretty enthused.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. And you're obviously, you've been on this path for a long while.
Yes.
You're obviously a natural healer. You understand the healing process. You understand the guide's process. You were probably able to heal other people. I'm sure I've got many friends now who are healers, and they don't actually do the healing. They bring in the energies from the higher conscious beings, and they do the healing through them. So
I'm totally with you. It's just raising the consciousness and the vibration personally, and then that is what the source energy heals, not me. We're just channels.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
we have to do our own work.
Yes, I can confirm that because I've been told that by my ET guides and my friends that do healing, as you do. So we, as you say, many of us have a mission here, a journey here, and we're all at different levels on that journey. And but the fact that we're never too old to reach out. I ask all the time if I have a problem or I need some more information. I just reach out and I ask, and they give me. They might not give me it straight away, but they do give me it. But then we've got to pay attention to the other modalities of contact they use, such as dreams, such as asking for something, say like a butterfly flying past, or a very popular one is a white feather dropping down out of nowhere. And the other day, part of the exo-conscious community, I went out and on my back door there was a feather. Okay, I didn't know at the time, it's an owl feather.
Oh,
But
wow.
two of the other people in the group I'm in the exo-conscious community, I held up my feather and said, look what I got today. And they held up the same feather from an owl with the same size. That's a connection through consciousness. But again, it's a sign. You could say, oh, no, it's just a coincidence. But once you have an understanding that these are contact modalities that consciousness use, higher conscious being use, then it broadens your understanding of it all, and it brings you closer together as a exo-conscious community, a much larger community. And we're a human community. We need to expand all this knowledge and information so we can evolve as a species, and that's where we're headed. And we have
Fabulous.
I'd like
Thank
to, first of all, and thank you for coming on and giving us the opportunity to hear you and to also examine our own spiritual expos to understand how it's working together. One thing I realized, I'm working on what we call the original mind, which is very related to what you were talking about and consciousness. It seemed to me that, as was said just a few minutes ago, religion itself is losing its position as an authority or as a corrector in life, because it has fulfilled its mission, and now the higher consciousness is able to move to a higher level of us, so we can know what is right and what is wrong. And I want to ask this question. I think it was yesterday, a few days ago, I was on a Zoom call, and they were talking about right and wrong. And I said, then all right and wrongs are theories, and they make laws to back up the theory. But if we can find an absolute truth that's universal, then we can remove fear and nuclear weapons and all these things, such as, and I say it has to be so true that it's like breathing. Anywhere in the world, if you don't breathe, you die. So it has to be the truth that you breathe. If you don't breathe, you die. So when we can come up with those kinds of truths, we won't need fear and therefore weapons and worrying about the earth situation and health and all those things would be not necessary, because we have a higher level of consciousness where we are connected to everything, not just one or two things. And religion will not have a real use for it at that time. What do you
I
think?
would agree with most of what you've said there, except that religion will play a big part in this, because it's a large part of many people's lives, and it's led them to this point where they've been happy with their religions. And now our religious leaders, our theologians, they have to expand their knowledge and understanding to new theories of consciousness, which encompasses religion and the higher conscious beings to their flock, as it were. I'm not a preacher or anything, but I'm sure our religious scholars can do that once they learn about the expanded state of our reality, our expanded state of consciousness. And I think religion will play a very important part in that. And I don't know whether you've heard of Chris Bledsoe. He's he's a contactee, an experiencer, and he's going down the line of he's a very religious man. He was a deacon within his church. He was brought up through I forgot which religion he was, but a very devout person. But then his flock ostracated him for a while because he's talking about the extraterrestrials now. But now his flock has come round to accepting the fact that, well, perhaps there are extraterrestrials. They've already got a good belief system within the religions, within God itself, and our ETs believe in God. We just need to change the concept of God itself. So I think religion, everything else I agreed with you, but I think religions will play a big part in this.
I think it's a necessary evil. That's my conclusion. I'm a retired pastor.
Oh, okay.
I started preaching when I was 7 years old. I'm now 77.
Wow.
And I've been the gamut. So that's good. I want to share a small portion of my dream I had with you last night. I lost my body and I became consciousness itself. And then I realized, and I asked the question, I was so free. I asked the question with the other consciousness around me. And I said to them, why do we need a body? And they explained to me that the body is necessary to grow the consciousness. And once you get to the level where you can go beyond the human anatomy or whatever, and then I realized that's what we are. We are mind, consciousness, and that's it. Nothing else.
Yeah, I agree. My ETs told me exactly what you said there, exactly the same words. We are mind, body, soul, and consciousness encompassed in a physical realm, and we're here to learn and expand consciousness itself. Consciousness cannot expand without the realities of the physicalities of who we are, that we are creating. That expands consciousness itself, and consciousness is the true life force within the universe. It's divine in itself. One could even say source energy is God. That is a total creator. All we're doing is changing the name from a single deity to encompass something larger than a single deity. And we're part of that. And I'm not a religious scholar or anything, but I think within many teachings, they're taught that we each have a piece of God within us. Well, that's our shared consciousness. And part of we are the creators. We were made in the creator's image, which is consciousness itself. But we are part of that creation. So it's really just expanding on the religions that we already have. That's my opinion in relation to this and how it will benefit mankind, because there are millions and millions of people. We just need to slightly change their perception, or if they don't want to, that's fine. But once we start asking as individuals and collective groups, the information will come to you, because that's where consciousness itself wants us to lead in relation to evolving as a species, as a human species, and we are important within the universe as a human species.
Thank you.
I have a related question. The concept of the Christ appears in many religions, Judaism, Christianity, and do you have any comment on the concept of the Christ?
Well, you're probably talking about the Christ consciousness. As again, I'm not a theologian. I can only go on what my ET guys have given me. I've also have some indigenous peoples that give me information from the angelic realms directly to me. And I think because our understanding of God is so complex, And Christ is a very large part in that, in relation to Christ's consciousness, shared consciousness. And then we have the divine consciousness, the divine feminine. And again, these are theological arguments that I don't really understand because I'm not a theological scholar, but I understand that Christ, I suspect, was and still is a higher conscious being that came down here, materialized to help us with evolve at that time. And I know I woke up one morning and I had the face of Mary Magdalene sat next to me, looking at me. And I opened my eyes and I thought, wow, that's Mary Magdalene. And I thought, if I blink, she will disappear. So, and her image, her face was there through the sunlight, through the creases in the pillow, and through the shadow. But it was clearly her. She didn't say anything, but she was there to let me know that she is real. She's now a higher conscious being, but she was part of the Christ consciousness and a very important role that plays. So, yeah, I'm not, as I say, I'm not a scholar in religious areas.
All right, thank you.
And come on in, Amy.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Kevin. Such a great talk. You covered so much. I can attest to basically almost everything that you talked about. Astrally traveling to a friend's house. I'm in New York. I flew, woke up one night, couldn't sleep, went to a healer I know, flew, basically astrally traveled over to Indiana and woke her up in her bed and said, I need help. Can you please help me get to sleep tonight? And I was asleep within like a half hour. But yeah, just the Pleiadian medical team, the DNA upgrade, the light body upgrade, that happened to me like a year and a half ago. Just seeing spirits on the other side, super vivid dreams. I wake up and have messages like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do about that issue. So my question for you, so 2012 obviously meant, like with the Mayan calendar, it's really about the awakening of the planet, the waking up. So we're having this ascension. Everybody here in this group today knows that because we're all here. We're all waking up, have woken up. So my question, and I imagine we don't have a date yet that's like set because like you said, the timelines, we're working on the timelines, everything's shifting all the time. I've read in different books, maybe 2100 we're going to reach this. Like we're in the 3D now, we're going to the 5D, there's these timelines shifting and we're splitting, and like you said, either there's going to be two of them, and some of us will go to 5D, some will stay in the 3D. The ETs, like the Pleiadians or the Andromedans, any of them, have they ever said like a date, like 2050 we're going to appear to the earth and we're going to finally be able to like be involved in your government? Like, do we have any timeline like that, any date?
I don't have any timelines or dates. I did get some information a few years ago now. I can't remember what exactly the year was, but I was woken up in the middle of the night again at 1:11 a.m. They gave me information in relation to asking our governments about a mandated protocol to receive our ET star families. So I contacted the Nicholas Hedman, the chairman of the Outer Space Affairs Committee at that time, and asked if there was a mandated protocol in place to receive the ETs should they wish to communicate with our United Nations. And he did reply. He said that at this moment in time, if advanced extraterrestrials wish to connect with the United Nations, there are no protocols in place to receive them. But it was interesting that he used the word advanced extraterrestrials. So I suspect they do have these protocols, but they're not openly speaking about them. And I was given an actual date where they wanted to meet with our extraterrestrials wanted to meet with the UN in New York. And I contacted Nicholas Hedman again, his office at the UN headquarters in Vienna, I think, and gave him the information. I also contacted another guy in Washington, D.C., and with the information, but nothing came of it. They didn't respond on that occasion because I'd given them a specific time. But so now I don't have one. But then they changed the timeline by saying they weren't going to do it through the governments. They were going to do it through these citizens of Earth. Once we're educated enough to understand the consciousness itself, then we, the citizens of Earth, and I'm sure it will be groups, many groups, individuals from different groups who all have their own contact, coming together and making that request. And I'm sure our governments can join in with that if they wish to. There are those within the government that do, and those in the government that don't. So there's always two sides to these things. But clearly, we as individuals, as citizens of Earth, are working towards the reveal globally of our ET star families. And I have been told that we are moving towards the golden years with shared technologies. And we're already seeing that now with Dr. Rose Michael and her EE healing system. They're already doing that. So it's really just a matter of keep going on this path. And those of us have an understanding of the creation of timelines are working towards that. And it only takes a few people to have an understanding to change these timelines, I'm sure, or create a new society. Look at the founding fathers for the US. How many were there? And look what they created, because they spoke out. They wanted to create a different reality in their timeline. And they did that. They were successful. There was a lot of turmoil, and but they achieved it. They did achieve it. So it's the same again now, I'm sure. And I'm pleased that you've had all this information yourself. It's always great to speak with other experiences. That gives me confirmation for all my experiences as well. And I've met with so many now. I know I mentioned earlier when I was 17, 18, I tried to find others and I couldn't find anybody. But now there are many groups, many speaking out. And as I've mentioned one, the Exo Conscious Community, but there are many others as well that are working towards this. So it's not just, I'm not just one individual. I'm just a small piece in the jigsaw, the huge jigsaw of the human evolution.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like we're all over the planet, right? Just waking up our own little area, and Catherine having this group and everything. Yeah. And the Pleiadian medical team, I wanted to share quick, everybody, that absolutely call on them if you are sick, if you are hurting, because I do healings on friends and family. I recently did a healing for my ex-husband because his back was so bad and he was just having trouble with his lower disc, right? So called on the Pleiadian medical team, sent healing, could see the Pleiadians working on his back, and they put a new disc in it. This was like 2 weeks ago. Wow. And he was like, oh, my back. And I was like, well, I'll send healing. And he went to get an MRI like a week later. He's like, well, let me see how it's doing just in case. The MRI was like, you're okay. It's not so bad. And I said, because you need some time. And I said, the Pleiadian said, wait 2 weeks because they're working. It has to heal. So all of this is amazing. It really is. Real quick, the Atlanteans also experienced this this timeline. Like, well, they actually became extinct because weren't they also at this juncture of technology versus spirituality, and they had to make a choice, and they went towards technology, and it ruined them?
I don't know much about their history or their story, but I suspect this has happened in the past, and it will probably happen in the future, because all timelines are created, both past and future, from the void of consciousness itself. And that's the key to that knowledge. That's that one key that opens that door to creating our timeline. And when our scientists understand it, and they are learning that, then, and the experiences that understand it, the exo-conscious community that understand it, then we can create it. And that's where we're headed. And we have to do that because we don't want the Hopi prophecy coming true in relation to us becoming extinct. I'm sure we won't. We are towards the golden years for humanity.
Yeah, we're shifting.
Yes.
We're going to the 5D, everybody. Let's go.
Thank you so much, Amy. I appreciate your questions and your comments. Thank you. All right, now we have Sabrina. Hi, Sabrina.
Hello. Hello, Kevin.
Hi, how you doing?
Thank you for doing this. Yeah. So my first question was, can you speak to them at any time, or do they like make arrangements with you when they'll come and get you? How do you normally work communication with them?
Okay, if I want to communicate with them, I'll just ask them something. Sometimes they come back to me straight away. Sometimes it's a little while later. Sometimes I'm able to have a conversation with them just in real time, telepathically. And other times I found out just recently, they start giving me information as I wake up in the morning. They're moving on to more complicated things in relation to consciousness. And they're giving me that information the first thing in the morning when I wake up now. So there's different modalities that they use. And sometimes they'll come in a dream and give me the information. Sometimes I'll channel the information. I was asked by the ETs, they wanted to speak to a specific group a few weeks ago, and I spoke to that group. So many different ways, really, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. The next question was you made a difference between consciousness and soul, and what is that difference there?
Well, that's a very good question.
You were listing that.
Yeah, I suspect that our souls are part of source energy, which is consciousness itself. And then that separates from the source energy and becomes, creates the reality that we're in. So when my body dies, my soul will go back to the source consciousness itself with all the other souls that are there. But yeah, so it's quite complicated, is that, from the respect of as understanding it. But that's my understanding, that we go back to source consciousness itself. But we choose to do that. We have the free will to come back down again. I remember 3 past lives quite vividly, and I explored them when I was a child, because as children we remember our past lives. And I've been showed my next future incarnation if I choose to do it, and I probably will, because I've had a good life so far down here. I hope it continues. But yes, the free will and the choice of the soul itself to come down here, and some souls come down with, I understand that they have a contact, they have work to do, they have a mission. And I know my mission is to help facilitate the reveal globally of our 80 Star Families ambassadors. I've no recollection of signing a contract to do it, but I'm happy to do it. I know it's my mission, and I'm sure that I will find out when I pass, because I will go back to that level of consciousness with my extended family again, with my ET extended family, and then back up to source energy should I choose to go that high up.
Okay, my last question has to do with contact. Now, I used to have communication with a group of ETs, and for some reason I don't have it anymore. So maybe you can help with this. But like Mexico right now, they already established a law. They passed a law where they're going to be revealing whatever events happen there, right? So the government's no longer going to hide these things, which I think it's really good. And there is, I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he's been reporting UFOs and ETs and that sort of thing in Mexico, Maussan, for a long time. So, and they seem to be getting more and more and more events there. And in fact, see, there's a lot more beings being seen, right? And just because he reports it, you know, just about every day, and he takes it very seriously. So this is coming. The question is, you know, like how, when they tell you that it's when the people ask, are they going to maybe do it in one country first, you know, the one that is the most open to it, or are they going to wait for everyone? Because it doesn't seem like the United States really wants to, you know, reveal this or let it go for whatever reason, right? And we can name many, but we're speculating. But how do they say is like the best way to do this? Have they told you anything in reference to this that would be the easiest for humanity to handle and for them to get it done the fastest?
No, they haven't. In simple answer, no, they haven't. They haven't given me a time or a process for doing this. But I do find that what happens is they'll give me that information as and when we require it. But I must stress the importance that it's a group reaching out, individuals and groups. But I suspect if one government reaches out and said we are open to our ETs landing in our countries, then others will want to join in because they don't want to be left in the dark. So if one country does it, then other countries may move forward. And then, I mean, there's Costa McCreese and his group, etletstalk.com. And he has over 1 million people now globally who reach out to the ET star families, and they show themselves to small groups and things. They show their craft and they flare up. So people already have their own contact. And the more we talk about it, the more the governments will listen because they don't want to get left behind. Say Mexico are going to do that, and all the publicity it brings through Mexico, maybe all the technologies that the ET shares with the Mexicans first before they, so they become the custodians of the earth. Well, the other governments won't want that. So I'm sure they'll have to, well, they won't have to, they can do what they want, but I'm sure they don't want to lose out by new technologies being shared with one particular country. It needs to be shared with the planet, with humanity. So no, I don't have any times, but I'm confident that it's going to happen because there's so many people working on it. And they wouldn't have wasted all that time in educating me to understanding this, then asking me to speak out. I wouldn't have done if they hadn't have asked me. There's only my wife and my brother that knew of my contact before D came and asked me to do this. But now I realise the importance of it, and it's the right time. And I wasn't aware of all the other groups that have been doing this for decades. So I'm fairly new to the whole concept of it, but I'm willing to put the work into it to do what I can achieve to help, and hopefully, well, we will succeed. I'm sure we will, because we are positive, because we have an understanding. We have an understanding that co-creation and creation, using thought and consciousness through the void of consciousness itself, which I've seen the end of consciousness when I was 17, 18. And I was taken there for a reason. So I can speak about it now, all these years later, when they gave me the equation for the void of consciousness itself. So that's the key. But it's a fact that we're talking about it. It's a fact that it's out there. It's a fact that we have the expanded consciousness. And that, I don't think that can be closed down. We are creating it. And I say I'm very confident for the future, very confident. And I was just thinking about Gary Heseltine. He was asked to speak at the Brazilian Senate a few months ago. And so Brazil are thinking about, obviously, releasing all this information. We've got Mexico, Brazil, so we'll find some others joining in, I'm sure. Our governments need to get on board, and I'm sure they will. They do represent us, and if it's the people's will, then hopefully they will do that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Sabrina. All right. So I just want to say to you, Kevin, this has been a really amazing evening, and I'm sure everybody has really gotten a lot out of this. I know I have, and it's just so exciting. It leaves me feeling just so hopeful and positive about where we're all going as a human species. We're all evolving, and I think we all have these abilities to tap into this higher level of consciousness and awareness. And I love that you shared some of the ways that you do that, and to help others to also be able to connect more deeply with their
Okay, well, thank you, Kathleen, for inviting me. And then my website's got some interviews on there. I've done a couple of channels, and that's kevinjbriggs.com. And then you can, my book on Amazon, I don't think I showed it. is spiritual consciousness, a personal journey. That's me at the bottom there, entering the new universe, the new reality that we are creating. So that's available on Amazon if anybody's interested.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kevin, for everything you're doing. And I just, it was really a pleasure having you here tonight. All right, guys, thank you for being here. And I appreciate all of you. I look forward to seeing you all again soon, and have a good night. God bless.
Bye-bye, everybody.